Hello, this is day 78 of reading one canto of the Divine Comedy every day. We are on Paradiso, Canto 11, which I'll read from the Longfellow translation before giving some quick comments. O thou insensate care of mortal men, how inconclusive are the syllogisms that make thee beat thy wings in downward flight. One after laws, and one to aphorisms was going, and one following the priesthood, and one to reign by force or sophistry, and one in theft, and one in state affairs, one in the pleasures of the flesh involved wearied himself, one gave himself to ease, when I, from all these things emancipate, with Beatrice above there in the heavens, with such exceeding glory was received. When each one had returned unto that point within the circle where it was before, it stood as in a candlestick a candle. And from within the effulgence which at first had spoken unto me, I heard begin smiling, while it more luminous became. Even as I am kindled in its ray, so, looking into the eternal light, the occasion of thy thoughts I apprehend. Thou doubtest, and wouldst have me to re-sift in language so extended and so open my speech, that to thy sense it may be plain. Where just before I said, where well one fattens, and where I said, there never rose a second, and here 'tis needful we distinguish well. The providence which governeth the world with counsel, wherein all created vision is vanquished ere it reach unto the bottom, so that towards her own beloved might go the bride of him who, uttering a loud cry, espoused her with his consecrated blood, self-confident, and unto him more faithful, two princes did ordain in her behoof, which on this side and that might be her guide. The one was all seraphical in ardor, the other by his wisdom upon earth a splendor was of light cherubical. One will I speak of, for of both is spoken in praising one, whichever may be taken, because unto one end their labors were. Between Tupino and the stream that falls down from the hill elect of blessed Ubald, a fertile slope of lofty mountain hangs, from which Perugia feels the cold and heat through Porta Sole, and behind it weep Gualdo and Nocera their grievous yoke. From out that slope, there where it breaketh most, its steepness rose upon the world a sun, as this one does sometimes from out the Ganges. Therefore, let him who speaketh of that place say not Ascesi, for he would say little, but Orient, if he properly would speak. He was not yet far distant from his rising before he had begun to make the earth some comfort from his mighty virtue feel. For he, in youth, his father's wrath incurred from certain dame, to whom, as unto death, the gate of pleasure no one doth unlock, and was before his spiritual court et coram patre unto her united. Then day by day more fervently he loved her. She, reft of her first husband, scorned, obscure, 1,100 years and more, waited without a suitor till he came. Not it availed to hear, that with Amyclas found her unmoved at sounding of his voice, he who struck terror into all the world. Not it availed, being constant and undaunted, so that, when Mary still remained below, she mounted up with Christ upon the cross. But that too darkly I may not proceed, Francis and poverty, for these two lovers, take thou henceforward in my speech diffuse. Their concord and their joyous semblances, the love, the wonder, and the sweet regard, they made to be the cause of holy thoughts. So much so, that the venerable Bernard first bared his feet, and after so great peace ran, and in running thought himself too slow. O wealth unknown, O veritable good! Giles bears his feet, and bears his feet Sylvester behind the bridegroom, so doth please the bride. Then goes his way that father and that master, he and his lady, and that family which now was girding on the humble cord, nor cowardice of heart weighed down his brow at being son of Peter Bernardone, nor for appearing marvelously scorned, but regally his hard determination to innocent he opened, and from him received the primal seal upon his order. After the people mendicant increased behind this man, whose admirable life, better in glory of the heavens were sung, incoronated with a second crown was, through Honorius, by the eternal spirit, the holy purpose of this archimandrite. And when he had, through thirst of martyrdom, in the proud presence of the Sultan, preached Christ and the others who came after him, and, finding for conversion too unripe the folk, and not to tarry there in vain, returned to fruit of the Italic grass. On the rude rock twixt Tiber and the Arno from Christ did he receive the final seal, which during 2 whole years his members bore. When he, who chose him unto so much good, was pleased to draw him up to the reward that he had merited by being lowly, unto his friars, as to the rightful heirs, his most dear lady did he recommend, and bade that they should love her faithfully. And from her bosom the illustrious soul wished to depart, returning to its realm, and for its body wished no other bier. Think now what man was he, who was a fit companion over the high seas to keep the bark of Peter to its proper bearings. And this man was our patriarch, hence whoever doth follow him as he commands can see that he is laden with good merchandise. But for new pasturage his flock has grown so greedy that it is impossible they be not scattered over fields diverse. And in proportion as his sheep remote and vagabond go farther off from him, more void of milk return they to the fold. Verily, some there are that fear a hurt, and keep close to the shepherd, but so few that little cloth doth furnish forth their hoods. Now, if my utterance be not indistinct, if thine own hearing hath attenteth been, if thou recall to mind what I have said, in part contented shall thy wishes be, for thou shalt see the plant that's chipped away, and the rebuke that lieth in the words, where well one fattens, if he strayeth not. The next couple cantos all go together. St. Thomas Aquinas perceives several doubts in Dante's mind. Number one, what Thomas meant by where all may fatten if they do not stray, in regard to joining his priestly order, the Dominicans. And then the second thing that he said that Dante was puzzled by was referring to Solomon as him who a wiser one will never come. This canto just deals with the first question. But he begins by singing a song, a love song, about the courtship of St. Francis and Lady Poverty. Okay, so those of you who don't know, there are multiple different orders of priests in the Catholic Church. Yeah, the regular diocesan priests who just go to a church and they're in charge of the church, that's one thing. But those who live in communities, they join an order. So there's the Dominicans, the Carmelites, the Franciscans, and typically they each have their own sets of charisms, of virtues that they try to follow. And they have different focuses too. So naturally, some may be compared or contrasted to others. And the Dominicans and the Franciscans, one started by St. Dominic, one started by St. Francis, were something of rivals. St. Thomas was a Dominican, Francis was a Franciscan. But here we have St. Thomas singing the praises of St. Francis for his particular charism, his particular virtue that only he could bring to the table, which was extreme poverty for the sake of righteousness. And by the end of the canto, we see that Thomas does this because he sees within his own order today their weakness, a weakness which some Franciscan spirituality could have cured, which is seeking worldly goods and worldly status. In a canto or two, we're going to have a Franciscan friar, Franciscan saint, come up and return St. Thomas the favor, but we'll get there when we get there. Dante takes a moment to call out all those of the world who seek happiness in so many different vain ways, by their own merit, by their own power, whereas he, literally being carried by Beatrice through the spheres, is the recipient of such wonderful glory just by witnessing it. This partly goes back to the idea that reason cannot take you all the way to paradise, cannot take you all the way to God. Eventually you must make a leap of faith and let yourself be carried by that God that you cannot fully understand to the delights which you cannot fully understand and therefore cannot attain by yourself. Like I said though, the next canto goes with this one, so I won't make any final thoughts on the whole scene yet. We're still in the sphere of the sun, and we'll probably meet a few other souls from there. That's all for today, though. I'll see you tomorrow.